Today is a chill, chatty video where we're going to be talking about some of the challenges of living in the Netherlands. And no, we're not going to be talking about lack of housing, and we're not even going to complain about the weather, because we both know by now that there is not enough housing and that the weather sucks. Today, we're going to be diving into the more unusual things that I've been observing as a long-time international living in the Netherlands. It's nearly 18 years now. So if this is something you're interested in, continue watching. And if we're meeting for the first time, hello, I'm Gulce, it rhymes with Dolce, and with Making It in Holland, I make content about life, career, and business in the Netherlands so that you can create a life that you absolutely love here. Let's talk about the service here in the Netherlands. I lived in several countries and I visited several countries. And when it comes to the service culture, the Netherlands is very subpar. Not that long ago, with the restrictions being lifted up and cafes opening, and on a beautiful sunny day, which we know how rare that is here, I decided to go out to treat myself to a nice little lunch and maybe nice little something next to it to drink. And I feel like every time I walk into a cafe or a restaurant here, as if I'm doing this massive favor to the people working there. Like, I should be so grateful that I am here in their presence. I'm not saying that you should be over the top, but if a paying customer is walking through the door, it never really hurts to greet them, welcome them, find them a place to sit down, and then bring them the menu and maybe do a bit of chit chat. Is that too much to ask? I don't know. It feels like it is too much to ask here. Let me know down in the comments if you've had a little bit of a subpar experience with the service industry here and what you've thought about that, because I'm very curious to know if this is just unique to me, if I'm the one being entitled, or if this is something common that a lot of other people experience as well. If you're paying 15 euros or less, I've become very accustomed to not expect any kind of decent level of service. It's almost like I get to do everything myself and I'm not even expecting people to be nice to me or treat me in a nice way. If I'm paying anywhere between 15 to 50 euros, that's 50, I'm still not expecting such a high level of service, because again, it's like, you're not paying that much, but at the end of the day, you are paying high enough that you should, and with rightly so, expect a high level of service. What I have experienced, however, if you're paying upwards of 80 euro per person, the service level increases dramatically. So if you haven't seen my vlog from a couple of weeks ago, where I visited a Michelin level restaurant and I paid 85 euros in bill, well, that day, let me tell you, I got the high level of service that I'm expecting to get regardless of where I am walking into if I'm a paying customer. So I feel like here, if you're not paying the money, you really shouldn't be expecting that high level of service. Part of that comes with the fact that a lot of people working in the horeca industry, so restaurants and cafes, they sort of belong to this like horeca industry, that's what it's called in Dutch, are doing it as part-time jobs. It's not really their career path, and most of the time you have students taking these part-time jobs. So it's not really their job to give you that high level of service. They're there to save the day, earn a little bit of extra, maybe to go through their studies and, pay for other things, so on and so forth, which there is nothing wrong with that. But as a paying customer, and especially if you have other places to compare different levels of service to, you are expecting a certain standard when you are walking into a cafe or a restaurant. Another thing is spontaneous plans out the window. They really don't exist. And this is something that I miss a lot. You can give your friend a call. You don't need like days and weeks and months to plan events. You can just like show up to each other's homes, maybe go out somewhere, take a walk, hang out, whatever. You don't need this like complicated way of planning. I've learned to embrace this in a weird way living in the Netherlands, that I need to always be thinking ahead and plan things ahead. However, sometimes I miss this ease that just comes with being spontaneous and not knowing your like every single hour, every single minute weeks and weeks in advance. I did recently make a parody about the Dutch logic where I was making a fun of a situation that I experienced not that long ago with a friend where we were trying to find a moment that worked for both of us to meet up, and gosh, that moment still hasn't come. So if you haven't seen that parody and if you want to laugh a little bit, check out the video that's popping up here or here. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Nothing happens after 6 p.m. on weekdays. And I think this really goes well with the previous point that I made when it comes to being spontaneous. During the weekday, a lot of the cities and towns here are like ghost towns. Nothing really happens. Shops are not open. A lot of the restaurants and cafes are closed on Mondays, maybe sometimes even on Tuesdays. And if you're in the mood to go out and do something a little bit different, it becomes very, very difficult to do that. Moving on from that, I really want to talk about the lack of diversity of shops and stores. And that is so ironic because in many of my other videos, I talk about how diverse the Netherlands is in general as a country. But if you walk into a store, it's almost impossible to find things that are not Unilever. For those of you who might not know, Unilever is a company that owns whole bunch of smaller brands, and these are the brands that you're able to buy in a lot of the shops in the Netherlands. And if you're looking for something that is not Unilever owned, you're going to have a hard time finding it. This brings me to a point which I feel like might be a little bit controversial, but hear me out on this. It's very socialist capitalist here. Yeah, you can buy stuff, you can go to these shops, but there is only a select few products that are predetermined for you to purchase, aka socialism. But it is capitalist society. You can go buy as much of it as you want. You can use as much of it as you want. Hey, socialism, like be normal, don't talk about money. But we're also a capitalistic society where we know there are a lot of very wealthy Dutch companies here. So I find it a bit of a fascinating dichotomy between these two concepts, almost like two polar opposites, and how they are very interesting part of the Dutch culture. And this is something that I'm observing more and more these days because I've been running my own business now for 2 years, and every single time there's a mention of money, I'm almost sensing this like judgment from a lot of the Dutch people, like it's a sin to talk about it, But I know deep down, especially for the ones who own their own businesses, like, hello, I know you make money too. The last thing I want to talk about is healthcare, and oh my god, I know that we all know that healthcare here pretty much sucks. I was in the studio, this was back in the day when I was actually still studying architecture at Eindhoven University of Technology, making a model, spent like the whole day in the model workshop with a lot of like wood dust residue and whatnot. And even though I had goggles and a mask, I think it didn't go so well for me. So I had a really hard time breathing after a while. And at some point, it really started to hurt my chest. Like I couldn't breathe properly. I started to panic. I went outside. A couple of my friends were like, oh, you're fine. It's gonna be okay. No worries, blah, blah, blah. But the moment I inhaled up until here, I couldn't go further because I had such a sharp pain on my chest. And when I breathed it all out, the pain wouldn't go away. So I thought, you know what? I really probably should go to the hospital just to kind of get things checked out to make sure like that I'm all okay, that everything is going to be all fine. I ended up biking to the hospital, to the nearest hospital in Eindhoven. And it was, I think, about 15 minutes of biking. I remember biking very slow and taking very, very shallow breaths because I just couldn't breathe. It was really painful. And the moment I went inside the hospital, the first thing that they told me was like, this is not covered by your insurance. You're going to have to pay for this in full. Like, are you aware of that? I remember just saying like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like, just get me to the doctor. Like, hello, I have arrived at the hospital. I can barely breathe. It hurts my chest when I'm trying to do so. I'm like, that is what you're asking me. You're asking me that this is something I'm going to have to pay for and I should be mindful of it. I think that was the day, like up until then, I knew that the Dutch healthcare system was no bueno, but that was like the moment that put everything in concrete for me. Like, this is really, really not okay. It's just challenging. Let's be honest. I don't even know what else to say here. It's just challenging. I know a lot of these things I shared today are like, you can definitely call these first world problems. And, you know, in many sense of the word, they are. These are just luxury complaints. I'm totally aware of that. However, I do have much more useful content about career and business in the Netherlands. So if you're interested in those, definitely check out the playlists down in the description of this video. Check it out. It's popping up on your screen right now here. See you. Until the next time, don't forget to stay out. Bye bye.